So then my next question is, I'm curious about how many years of Moodle experience you have. And or what sort of, well, I already kind of know what sort of role you have because we talked about that, but I'm curious how long you've been using Moodle. Oh my goodness. Yo.
Who here has used Moodle 1.5 or earlier?
Me.
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 Floyd.
No.
I started on version 1.1.
Yeah, I didn't start that early.
I kind of started
Did you
with
move backwards,
1.5,
by
but
the
our
way?
first production was 1.6.
That's close enough.
So Michelle, when you move back to the previous one, it changes which question we're being faced with.
Oh, okay. So what question are you seeing now?
Setting.
Okay, that's good. That's what I want you to see.
Oh, okay. So you wanted to leave the years bit. Yeah, okay.
Oh, wait. No, that is weird. I don't know why it switched. I've got a couple of people who have teacher rights inside of this course. So it's possible that we're working at odds. So, oh, Jonathan says, yeah, I think we installed the beta. Maybe. I think we installed the beta before 1.0 was released, but we didn't really use it much. And then we did our first actual site with actual users.
26 years. I think Moodle started in what, 2002?
Yeah, 2002. So
26 years. Wow, somebody must have been working with Martin back in the development stage or something, or even pre-development.
Cool. All right, so let's take the next question then. Where are you located? Like city? Yeah, thanks. So I've not used RootClap, as I said before, and I'm thinking about, like, if I were a teacher, right? And suppose I had those clever students who wanted to answer things like my desk or things like that. You know, like how you would manage that. I don't know if there's a way, I haven't looked to see if it's possible to see who's answered what, you know, and then ban them. But I don't understand why it's switching. Is somebody in, say it again?
Nothing at all. No. It's someone else is looking at it if you're not doing it.
I'm not doing it.
Not me.
So if somebody else has teacher rights in the course and they're flipping through the RootClap, be aware that what you're doing is impacting everyone. All right, so we have the location. Okay, so before we go on to this next item then, what I'd like to go ahead and do is talk a little bit about my background and experience in particular as it relates to workplace, introduce some of the others that are in the room, and because we'll be working together and we'll have plenty of people to turn to ask questions today. So as I mentioned, I've been using Moodle since about 1.1, since about 2003. So I've been using it quite a while. There are lots of pieces I know, you know, like I can do kind of in my sleep as it relates to Moodle. Moodle Workplace is a whole new beast because Moodle Workplace really, gosh, I think I gave a presentation on Workplace at this Moot last year. And that was really kind of early days. Like, I don't know if we even had clients full on implementations at that point. So over the course of this last year, I've been working to really better understand Workplace, look at how all the features work, and think about how they meet people's needs. My background is in education and instructional design. I spend a lot of time thinking about how people learn online best. So I've been working with a lot of different organizations to help them implement Moodle Workplace and to think about, how do we use that to help create better online learning experiences and provide the tools for organizations to manage that. And then I've been working closely with several others here. So I'm just gonna, let's see. Jonathan, do you want to introduce yourself first? I'll try to keep these pretty short so we have more time to work, but no audio. Okay, so Jonathan and I co-own My Learning Consultants. So I do the fun stuff like the instructional side of things, implementation, and then John does the technical work and lots of business related stuff. Ted, I know you're in the room somewhere.
I am. Hi, I'm Ted Ward. I am a mutineer. I'm also the moderator for you folks today in the Zoom meeting. And I recently just started with Jonathan and Michelle and Jeff with My Learning Consultants. And I am glad to be here. I'm just sad there's no ice blocking, but that's a different subject.
I know. All right, and then Jeff, I saw your face too.
Yeah, so Jeff Hammonds, I have 18 years classroom experience in a previous life where I taught elementary, used Moodle as well as other LMSs. Always had a very strong alignment with kind of the educational pedagogy of Moodle and then later found really matched Michelle's. Several years ago, I stepped out of the classroom and have been with My Learning Consultants now for almost 2 years. And have been doing a lot with Moodle Workplace, introducing it to a lot of new clients, and I'm excited to kind of share that with other people also.
Cool. And is there anyone else hanging out in here that I've missed? Okay. So as we think about the structure of this session today, I'm not a big fan of standing at the front of the room or, behind the microphone for 3 hours. And I think that would be torture for pretty much everyone involved. I also know that if I were to walk you through how to do one implementation or one use case in Moodle Workplace, that there would be 42 others that we would miss entirely. And that you're more likely to walk away with something that you can use and uncover questions that I wouldn't even think of if we work together to look at Workplace from several different angles. So the way I see it, my role is really to ask the right questions and then for us to work together to figure out how to answer them. If you have looked inside of the Moodle Moot course, I do have a variety, I have 2 windows up. I do have a variety of resources in there that we will definitely use to support the work we're doing today. I think it depends on the kind of learner you are, though, how much you rely on these. Some people will look at these and then use that as a foundation. I expect other people will just hop right in and dig around and try to figure things out that way, and that's fine too. I will tell you that there is some documentation related to Moodle Workplace, but it is not nearly as thorough or complete as the Moodle documentation. Moodle's got about 15 years on the workplace documentation. But the nice thing is I think a lot of it is intuitive, and that together we'll be able to figure this out. I'm curious, as we go into talking about Workplace, I want to know what you know. And I don't think I want to hit my next question quite yet. Yeah. I want to know what you know about Workplace. And so I'm going to have you just type this into the chat or speak up if you prefer to use audio. What do you know about Workplace, or what brings you here today? What are you hoping to learn?
What I know about Workplace is it's geared towards like businesses, workplaces,
Mhm.
and that some of the things developed in workplaces will eventually make it out into the general Moodle code. That's about all
Definitely.
I know.
Cool.
Yeah, this is Lang. I would say that the organization structuring as well as the multi-tenancy,
Mhm.
those are interest areas that I've seen, I guess, somewhat develop along in workplace since a year ago this time whenever I looked at it.
Mhm.
And, you know, to find out anything I don't know.
Very good. All right. Lots of people saying it's totally new. No more than I should. Yep. Sean, I'll be calling on you. Very little interested in more. Cannot self-host it. That is true. At this point, Moodle Workplace is open source, but the licensing model is a little bit, the licensing model is the same. The way they're managing the code is a little bit different in that, you know, I think they're holding it a little closer to the vest, and it is not possible to self-host it. That code is not just, you know, out in the wild for anyone to get. The good thing is that it is possible, like with our own hosting, and depending on the Moodle partner, it is still possible to customize it and have quite a bit of control over it. And you still have that power of being able to move from one provider to the next. So you still get to take advantage of a lot of the things that you get with Moodle. But yeah, that is one thing that's different.
Michelle, can I add a couple of quick things to that?
Pretty please.
So that is mostly correct with the caveat of in certain situations that we can work on some customized agreements if it makes sense to do self-hosted engagement. So the everyday, it does need to be hosted with a premium partner, but if that isn't possible, we can work on a kind of a customized agreement that will allow it to happen.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I forgot about that.
Process. And then the other part that I thought of, because I think it's really interesting, and I almost think I understand why the name of this is Moodle Workplace, but I do think that I see a lot of opportunities for this outside of the workplace environment. One of them that, you know, talking with clients lately is in a lot of these universities that have multiple campuses and they're really almost organizations within themselves, that there is a lot of functionality in workplace that will get them way far ahead in where they start from and using that as their platform.
Yeah, definitely. I've got 2 clients I'm working with right now. One is a technical school and they don't even have multiple, oh wait, no, they're not on. So I'm working with a school district that is, you know, 10 different schools, and they're in the process of implementing Workplace as we speak. And then, yeah, a wide variety of organizations using it. It scratches lots of itches for people and replaces the need for some plugins that people are using. So one comment says, I thought it sounded more collaborative. So it is a little interesting, and when you think about how Workplace works. So at its core, Moodle Workplace is still Moodle. Like anything I can do in a Moodle course, I can still do in a Moodle Workplace course. Most of what happens in Workplace happens kind of at this outer level where I can manage how people get into courses and manage processes around that reporting and all of those kinds of things. Do you think maybe perhaps, you know, if you're having multiple tenants or multiple institutions on the same site, you know, that could lead to more collaboration because you're all working kind of in the same space? I wouldn't necessarily say though, that I would say Workplace is inherently more collaborative than Moodle, but I'd be curious to know kind of where your head was in that. If you care to share. Yeah, and then Jonathan shared a couple ideas, things that have come from Workplace that are going into Moodle Core, have already gone into Moodle Core. I think the Moodle certificate or the Workplace certificate is going into Moodle Core.
Report Builder also.
Report Builder too, yeah. Cool. And Daryl says, I think the theming is somewhat limited. I would actually say, well, it depends on how you look at it. So yes, maybe it's limited because there are features built into Workplace that standard Moodle themes don't account for. So for example, there's the tenant menu or the report builder menu or the Workplace launcher. Standard Moodle themes haven't built those features in because standard Moodle sites don't need them. So that does limit my choice in terms of the number of themes that I can just grab from the Moodle community and install. All of those can be customized, of course, to accommodate, some Workplace features, but you'd have to work that. What I do love about the theming that comes in Workplace though, is, that area of thing is not my area of expertise. So I would often find myself frustrated when I would install a theme and I would just, I just want a banner across the top that's this color and I want the footer to be this color. And, even though I looked at all these themes that were available in the community and they seemed like they should be that easy, I would spend so much time kind of fussing around to try and get it to look the way I want it to look. And I've been so much happier with the theming that's available in Workplace. Like I can set up a Workplace site to look, what I think is good to match an organization's look and feel in a very short amount of time. And it doesn't require any plugins. It doesn't require any customization. It's just, yeah, I love that. So yeah, it's a pro and a con. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the collection of Workplace features that are available. So I'll go back to WooClap for this, and we'll talk about these, and then if you have a particular preference or an area of interest, I would be interested in your input so that maybe we can divide the time accordingly. So one of the first things that we'll look at is the appearance of Workplace, and it's not typically classified as a major feature of Workplace, but I do think it's unique and that it has some advantages over Moodle. So I think it's something worth talking about. And plus it's always fun to make your site look good, right? Multi-tenancy is one of the common selling points for Moodle Workplace. And what multi-tenancy does is it allows you to divide your site into multiple sites. So if you think about it like an apartment building, right? Or let's say an office building. So in an office building or a storefront, you would have one overarching landlord who controls all of the spaces. He will install the heating and air conditioning. He will take care of the parking lot. He kind of controls the overall look and feel of the building. But within that building, there are separate offices or spaces that are devoted to different tenants. So each tenant has control over who comes in and out of that space, what their space looks like, what things they offer in that space. Multi-tenancy works in a very similar way. So imagine, for instance, this K-12 school that I was talking about. They have people at the top level that need to kind of control everything, set everything up and create some structure, but they know that they have administrators and administrative staff that need to be able to create accounts for students, manage those students, put them in courses, things like that. And so the multi-tenancy is actually useful for them. I've got another client that's offering two different programs to different audiences. So one serves students at a university, and then the other one serves people in the community. And they each need to be able to create their own courses. They need to create their own programs, their students, manage all of that. So multi-tenancy is a big win in that case. It's also possible to create those tenants so that each tenant can have their own look and feel. So if I need, you know, people to come to this site and it needs to look this way for this organization within the larger group, they can do that. And, you know, the other organization can do the same. And those of you who have experience with Workplace, please feel free to chime in here in the chat or to speak up. Multi-tenancy is one thing that tends to drive a lot of people towards Workplace. I will say that there are usually a few key questions that we look at to determine whether or not multi-tenancy is appropriate. There are other features that help you meet some of those needs, and we'll talk about those questions as we go through things today. And then programs and certifications. Programs are a way to group courses into learning paths. So if I know I have a new employee that needs to take these 3 introductory courses, so, you know, here's the HR course with the typical HR materials, here's the department specific course, and then, you know, here's now the new COVID course. Everybody needs to take these courses, and I want to make sure they see that they need to complete those. I don't want just this catalog of courses. A program allows us to tie those together and to show progress across those courses, offer certificates based on that entire program, things like that. It is also possible, as noted in the WooClap here, to group courses for graduation. So if I know, for instance, my niece is about to go into a culinary program at our local junior college, and there will be a collection of courses that she needs to complete before the end of the program. And so you could, for any given year, create a path. You could create a path for the entire program and then organize that into sub paths for each year. There are a number of options there. Programs for a career ladder, yep. And then certifications adds a level of management to programs. It's designed for things that have an expiration date and need to be renewed, as somebody has noted. So one example that I think of, when I used to teach, we used to have to do bloodborne pathogens every year. So we would take this test and confirm, yes, we know what to do if something happens in the classroom. And then we would need to take it again a year later. In a lot of organizations, there are people who spend a lot of time managing that. You know, do you have your certification? Is it time for you to take it again? How many people are on the list? All of these things. The certifications feature in Moodle Workplace handles all of that for you. It'll generate the report. It'll send out notifications or messages to people who are about to expire. When they need to complete it again, it'll give them a notification and say, it's time for you to come in and take it again. And then you can do the certification such that maybe the first time through the certification, they have to complete this course. It's more in depth, more detailed. And then year 2, they can take this other version that's more of a review. So the certifications feature manages all of that. And then organization structure. It's possible to create a whole organizational hierarchy. So I can create, you know, here are departments within our organization, here are certain positions, and then I can use that to decide who has access to what, who has access to which reports. It's a whole hierarchy that's outside of the roles and capabilities within Moodle. So it's another nice way to be able to manage your users and manage reports. Dynamic rules. Dynamic rules are kind of like if-thens, right? So I might say, create a rule that says, if they complete this program, give them a certificate. If they have not completed this certification, send them a message to remind them that they need to complete it. If they've completed this course, then enroll them in this program. There are lots of things that I can do to manage how a user progresses through courses on the site, whether they get awarded badges, certifications, whether I send notifications to their managers. Dynamic rules will let me do all kinds of things here. And you can use dynamic rules to manage cohort membership. Moodle Workplace 3.9 has some more functionality in this area. And I do expect to see this area continue to grow. There are a few places where I'm like, I wish I could create a dynamic rule related to this. And there's been some limitations as Moodle Workplace is in development. but every version that comes out, we're seeing new features.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my question. The comment there wasn't actually about using a dynamic rule to drive the cohort. It's more about using cohort membership as a condition to allocate somebody to like a program.
Ah, you can do
And then
that too.
And if you take away from the cohort, they're unallocated from the program.
Yes. Yes, I'm pretty sure that we can do that. I'd have to look
Okay.
because there are lots of combinations.
I tried to do it in Workplace 3.7 and it was very finicky. Maybe it's
Okay.
changed. So
It could be. It could be. It's definitely an evolving product. And then the report builder gives you an interface to create reports. And this is really cool because I can go into the interface and say, I'd like a completion report. And I want to see who on the site has completed which courses, when they completed it, what their level of progress is. And as an admin, I can see that across all courses on the site, which is huge because, as many of you likely know, in Moodle, to get that same information, I would either have to generate a custom report or use configurable reports or go into each course and get that information or extract it some other way. With the report builder, I can create this report. I can customize it very easily. So if I want the student's name to be listed first and then the course, I can do that. I can just drag and drop the different tools or features and pick and choose what I want to appear. I can also choose who gets those reports, whether they have access to them inside of Moodle Workplace or if they get access to them via scheduled email or both. So are there questions? Deborah was asking, are these options possible in a regular Moodle install? Yeah, so what I have found historically with these features is that, you know, if we were to look at any one particular feature, I can often find a plugin to do a similar thing or get me kind of close. For instance, instead of the report builder, I might use configurable reports. But configurable reports requires me or someone in my organization to know how to write SQL queries and or, you know, download queries that have been shared within the Moodle community. And then I've got to figure out how to tailor those. Same thing with the programs, right? I can use a subcourses plugin and create a sort of equivalent of programs. The same is true for a lot of these things. I can mix and match plugins to make this happen. But my concern about doing that with a lot of organizations when I have this tool available to me is one, that means I'm dependent on a lot of different people to maintain plugins, to manage processes that are likely essential to what I'm doing. The other thing, and this is probably even more important, is that because each plugin is developed by a different person in many cases, and they're developed in isolation, my report builder is not necessarily aware of the subcourse plugin that I'm using, and I'm not going to be able to produce a report based on the unique features of the subcourse. Because all of this was designed to work together, all of the features interact, so I can really use them together in a more comprehensive, more complete way. All right, so what I'd like to look at now is I'd like to give you access to your own workplace site. And we've given you full access to a workplace site because I wanted you to be able to play with the multi-tenancy and really just have full freedom to explore. Jeff, where did you load that spreadsheet? Or have you yet? Do I need to do that? I wonder if I lost them at my moment of need.
It's on the, it's in the top section of the course, titled Workplace Demo Site Credentials.
Oh, I wonder if I just haven't refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, so in this spreadsheet, you should find a list of all of the different workplace sites that we've set up. These are fully functional workplace sites. We have not restrained them or restricted them or limited access in any way. It's the same site that we would set up for any of our clients. when you go to the site, your username will be admin, and then there should be credentials in there to allow you to log into the site. So Jimmy, for instance, we've obfuscated your email address because we didn't want to just give everyone in the room access to your full email address unless you wanted to. If you wanted to, yeah, change that, then, you know, we could. But, and you can change it on your account inside of Moodle Workplace. But then your password will be here next to it. So your username will be admin and your password will be whatever is put here. And then it'll prompt you to change your password when you first log in. So I'm going to be quiet here for just a second and let you all try getting into your Moodle site. And if you're not on this list, let us know and we will assign a site for you and or create an additional one if we need to.
And please post in chat or speak up if you have any issues.
Please.
So where is the link to log in? I've got my password and I've got all the credentials and everything. I just don't know where to click or where to go to actually log in.
The URL is that mtmoot.wp001.unhosting.site.
Ah, gotcha.
So, yeah.
You might be running into some issues. I got a server system check, and then it's taking me to a plugins check, and it's saying that there's a missing question type, and then it wants me to upgrade the Moodle database. And then I do that, and it does a system check, and then it sends me back to the plugin check.
Interesting. Okay.
Which instance was that?
Mine, Daryl's.
Daryl Tinter.
Yeah, number 008.
Thank you.
The question type is missing type, is defective or outdated.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I go straight to the login page. So
Yeah, I did too.
So did
but
I.
Once you log in, then it takes you to the server checks, which are all green, and they say okay, and then I click continue, and then it takes me back to the plugins check.
gotcha.
And
Ted, let's give Daryl a different site number. That's probably just a specific installation issue with that site.
All right.
I'm that guy that does that stuff.
I tried to use the email as the username and it didn't like it. Is that not what we're supposed to use?
Use admin. ADMIN. Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
Can I access Google Docs on a state computer? Okay. So Nina, I will put yours in the chat. This will be the hardest part of the whole session.
So is Workplace just a plugin for Moodle?
I'm going to let Jonathan answer that because he'll be able to speak to that more intelligently than I can.
It's a series of plugins, and then there are some minimal core changes that go along with that.
Okay, so if we wanted to do that, we could go to Moodle.com and do Workplace, and it'll automatically install the certain things that we select.
You can upgrade a site to work with Workplace, but the actual code for Workplace is not it's not distributed the same way that Moodle Core is.
Okay.
So you either have to do it through Moodle Cloud or through a Moodle Premium partner, or
Gotcha.
through one of those premium partners. There is the option for your organization to directly sign the Moodle Workplace license if you have a use case where it has to be, say, self-hosted.
Michelle or Jonathan, how long will this site be up for us to play with?
It'll be up for a month for sure. And if you run into a situation where you need it a little bit longer, you need to, you know, show it to others or whatever, let us know.
Right, thanks.
Yeah, so you don't have to figure everything out today.
Did we leave the admin email address the same?
You can change it if you'd like.
And would my sandbox be just my name and the plus like Jonathan's is in there?
You can just the regular, your standard email address.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in fact, I would encourage you guys to do that because then you can play around with notifications, which are one of the nice add-ons that you get with Workplace is additional notification capability.
Jonathan, I have to ask how long it took you to spin up 60 instances of this.
Well, it took me all morning to kind of tune it, and then Ted can speak to how long the actual installations took. It was a while.
Yes.
Nice.
I'd tell you what's cool though, is that to set up, like if somebody extra came in and we didn't have enough instances, we could have a new site spun up in like, how long does it take, John, from start to finish? Like definitely less than half an hour.
I would say while I was setting these up, it took about 5 minutes minus my time to get it all set up. I mean, it's a really, really smooth process on hosting.
Yeah. Nicole, let's look at yours. Sorry, Jonathan, I spoke over you.
No worries. Oh, I was going to say, I think this may be the first case of trying to run 75 sites on one Moodle server for a Moodle Workplace. So it's a bit of a experiment that we're running here. If it wasn't mean earlier, it's probably angry now.
Yes, it's probably true.
It actually knows my first name and is very angry.
Nicole's having trouble logging in. It says invalid login. She's got one of those default passwords. It's got either an I or an L or a 1 or something in there. I don't know if that's part of the issue. Nicole, are you typing it in? Oh, and are you using admin, ADMIN for the username? Okay, Nicole is copying it. Let me just do a check here real quick on yours, Nicole, and I'll try logging into it and see if I have. Or I'll just create an account for you.
And Daryl, you should be in. Give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
You're welcome.
And then Laura, Ted, can you work on Laura's too? I was just gonna log in via our temporary admin and give her a password.
So admin for the username, and then just make sure that there's no spaces. If you do copy and paste the password, I would try that once, but make sure there's no spaces.
Actually, you know what I'm gonna do for you, Nicole, to make this easier rather than you waiting on me to create an account for you and test it and all this sort of thing? Try this. Try using that for your username and that for your password. And then you will ultimately need to create an account for yourself. Oh, good. Lori got hers.
Good, Lori.
And that password, Nicole, I just gave you is, we have a system that creates a 24-hour temporary password. So that password will be valid for 24 hours. So if you don't get an account created in that first 24 hours, oh, I had to copy it in the notepad. I got some space in there. Oh, perhaps that's what's going on with Nicole's too. So I'm gonna grab. So Ted, I'm gonna grab site 75.
Well, we actually have 74 open too.
Okay. I figured if I took the very last one, I might be okay, so.
And Tara will get you set up. Hopefully I'm saying that right, Tara?
Okay. Rick having trouble on 05. So I'll just generate a temporary password for you too. Okay, so Rick, you'll use MLC Michelle. And then try that password that I pasted in there for you. And as with Nicole, that'll work for 24 hours. So you'll want to create your own account once you get in there.
And I'm giving Tara 74.
Awesome.
I'll send her stuff privately.
There we go. And when you get in, by the way, you can skip over the site registration. As excited as Martin would be to have all of these sites registered, he'd probably be kind of sad when he figured out that they were just demonstration sites.
You might say, show me the money.
Yes, yeah, that might be true too. Okay, is there anyone that has not yet been able to log into a site that wants to log into a site? Might be your iPad. Interesting.
Gavin, just to let you know, the servers are doing fine.
Hey, Ted, can you message with Nicole W privately and see if you can get her worked out? I gave her a temp password, username and password.
Okay.
You might just try logging into the site and make sure it's good for us so we can try and narrow it down to whether it's an iPad issue or
Sounds like a plan.
or a site issue. Or
we'll
we could try throwing on another site.
Or an easier password.
Or an easier password. That's true too. Cool. Okay. So what I'd like to do from here is I'd like to spend time first taking a look at the appearance settings for Moodle Workplace. And to do that, I'd like to have a little fun. So I'm going to change up this question a little bit. So what I'd like to think about and I'd like responses on related to setting up the appearance of the site, I'd like to kind of just brainstorm some cool ideas, some ways that we might theme your site. So imagine, it could be your organization too. So if you think like, I really do just want to play with this to figure out how to make it look like my organization and set it up like my organization's needs. then, you know, we could do that. And then in terms of examples, what I'm thinking of is like, you know, what if we were to try to make this workplace site look like it belonged to a restaurant or a technology company or a retail chain? So instead of trying to think about the very specifics, because I'm going to let you guys decide on the specifics, I want to know, brainstorm, you know, what kinds of use cases. So what's your organization? Maybe that would be a use case. A technology company, if you were to make a workplace site for your favorite musician, your favorite sports team. I'm just looking for something to help you drive the design of the site. And if you want to go with your organization, that would be fine too. So I'm going to clear out some of these actually. And we will look at ways to, so like I said, I'm changing the question. So yeah, there we go. Now you guys are on the right track. So like a zoo, like My Little Pony, the Washington football team. Perfect. Now you're getting it. Are these the only 3 sites we're gonna get? Mountains. School district, good. Could be a fast food chain. Could be your favorite retail store. Could be your favorite website. Oh, style it for the mountain moot. I like that idea too. Yeah, we had actually talked with Ryan. We were talking about the site, and we were talking about whether or not to do it, to switch it over to Workplace. But he'd already worked out lots of ways to do the Moodle things, and somehow he had like things to do, and he, you know, thought switching it over wasn't. Okay, this is a pretty good list. Now what I want to do is, I don't want each of us to have to work by ourselves. I want us to be able to work together in groups to work on the design of a site. Now, why is it you have your own Moodle workplace site if we're going to work in groups? It's so that you can each explore and play on your own, and then maybe you're feeding into the development of one site, or, you know, whatever way works best for you. Because I realize this distance environment makes things a little bit interesting. So let's see, can I vote these up? I can't. So what I'd like to do, let me show you just a little bit, and then we'll figure out who's going to work with who and do what. If I come back to the Mountain Moot course, there are a few resources for you. There aren't nearly as many for appearance, but the ones I have are like really good. So let me start. This one I'm gonna have to show you a little bit, and then I'm gonna let you free. So first I wanna show you the workplace gallery I have in this site. I'm gonna view a single, just to show you some different examples of what a Moodle workplace site might look like. So instead of the, you know, the bland turquoise site that you have now, these are some different options, and these look even more interesting under the hood. So notice on each of them how the colors change, and they have different logos. That one has a stock photo. There's a really good one here at the end. This one, they changed their font actually. And we worked with them to change the width of that login area. And then this one I'm including for inspiration, right? So Ted took the workplace style guide that I have attached in the course that Gavin and his team created. And that style guide has, I almost call it like my CSS cheat sheet. it tells me how to do all kinds of cool things, like how to make this background area on the login page a different color, how to make the font style, the font color here a different color, how to change things in the background within the Moodle site. And then Ted also figured out how to do the rounded corners and move this across. I don't know exactly what mix of it came from the style guide and what mix of it came from Ted's resourcefulness, but all of these things are possible. And then, like I said, you have lots of options inside. The place you're looking for inside of your Moodle site to start to change these things, if you go to the Workplace Launcher in the top right-hand corner, and then we go to Tenants, every site will come with one default tenant built in. We will work on changing that up later on. But if you click the arrow to the right there, it'll take you to an Appearance tab. And the Appearance tab will give you many of the settings that you need to modify the style and the look of your site. So for instance, the header logo, if I put an image in here, that will replace this up here. The login logo is the logo that appears on the left-hand side of the screen above the login fields. The login background image, probably want to get rid of this gradient thing and put your own image in. You have a favicon, you can do that. And, you know, as we're just experimenting today, feel free to go out and snag images from wherever to create the effect you're looking for. And then you can change all the link colors, the navigation bar colors, primary buttons. I'll show you a couple of, well, one tool that I use. If this is not your area of expertise, one site that I use, oh, I always hit the wrong one. To help me come up with color palettes so my colors don't blind anyone. And I'll put this in the chat as well. Is Coolers. I'm guessing that's how you say that. You say start the generator, and then you can have it just generate color palettes for you. So if you're trying to figure out, well, what do I make my background and my header, and what color should I make my links, then you know, this is something that you can use to help you get there. And then to make the real magic happen, there's this custom CSS field down at the bottom. And that's where that cheat sheet / style guide that I've loaded in the course is going to be really useful to you. So what I've done in the past, and I'm not an expert in CSS at all, I go in there and I find like, this says that if I use this, I can change the color of the background on the login page. And then I come over here to Coolers and say, oh, that's the color I want. And I just grab the color code and drop it in. So I'm thinking if you work in groups, then, you know, if somebody is more comfortable with the CSS, somebody else wants to grab logos, you can work together on one of your sites to make it the way you want. When you get finished with your site or you're happy with it, I'd like you to raise your hand or provide some sort of indicator that you're finished. And because I know this is something that you could easily, or at least I can easily spend all day on, once we get the first 3 groups who say, yeah, we're good, then we will stop there on the theme stuff. And then we will go on to other things. We'll do a little bit of show and tell. So the trick at this point is to go into breakout rooms and, you know, if there's an area of interest for you. So let's do this. Breakout rooms. Let's see. Ted, you said breakout rooms were enabled. but
And it should give you, so you decide how, once you click that, you should be able to break people into maybe like, let's see, 5 people for a group, or what are you thinking?
ideally I'd like to keep it to 3 because
Okay.
5 gets kind of crazy. But what I'm struggling with at the moment is the Zoom tool to create the breakout rooms or to divide people into the breakout rooms, because I'm not seeing it. You have co-host rights too, right?
I do. Actually, I have assigned 8 rooms with 3 to 4 participants per room, and we'll do that. You'll automatically be assigned a room. So remember your room number when we report out so that you remember who your team is. And I will do that. Are you ready to do that, Michelle?
Yeah, if somebody is looking to work with another group though,
We can swap them around, especially if they're the same team.
okay, let's do that. So questions before we go into the breakout room. So the goal is make your site look fabulous. And when you've got it to the point you're happy with, then raise your hand or ping us somehow and let us know that you're in a good place. And once we hit the first 3, then we'll stop there. All right, and then if you get into a breakout room and you find that you are really dying to do the Star Wars theme and there's nobody in that room that wants to do that, then we can try and help you find a group that has the same passion you do.
So when you go into the groups, are you just like picking one of the person's sites to use?
That's what I would suggest, that you can create accounts for the other people in your group on that site. So you have you can all work, and or one person screen shares and you're trying it on your site and you say, okay, here's the image to load there. Whatever way works best for you.
I see.
All right. Let's head to the breakout rooms then.
Michelle, when you hit the breakout room button at the bottom, does it show you the breakout rooms in progress?
Am I a co-host? Because I don't think I'm seeing that functionality.
You are.
Now I see breakout rooms.
There you go.
Yes, I didn't see it before.
Perfect.
Cool, Rick. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Nice to see you. So yeah, you can actually, once that pops up, you can check in on any of the groups.
So I was put in like group 6, I think, and one person was there and then disappeared, and I was the only one in the room.
Okay, I'm gonna move other people to your room, Floyd. Go ahead and pop back in.
Okay, now how do I get back? Was that room 6? I don't know that I can my room.
Will it mess anybody up that I didn't join the breakout room for?
No, actually, there's 3 people in there, sir.
Okay.
But you should be.
Yeah, I'm going in.
There he goes. Perfect.
Cool.
Okay, anybody? We got nobody in.
It's telling me I've been assigned to breakout room 3. I don't want to join breakout room 3 because I want to be able to bounce around.
Yep, nope, you are totally fine. You don't have to join that one.
I don't know how to get.
Do you want? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was just trying to figure out how to get to the list. Okay, I'll figure it out. Thank you, Ted.
Do you want me to share my screen really quick?
No, let me join breakout 3 and then I'll see if I can bounce to others once I get out of there.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Jonathan.
Got my technology going again.
everything's going smooth. I created a couple of extra instances. I made 75 or 76, but I don't know if I want to make any more yet.
Yeah, I would hold off because that's a little bit intensive.
Yep. And well, what's nice is there's only 7 rooms with 3 people in, so we're only using 7 instances at the moment.
Well, in theory.
In theory, right.
Experimenting
It's
and then
still
going
60,
back.
70 some users, right?
Yeah.
Tara, Casey. Ralph, are you guys having issues joining a meeting?
I've joined. I've joined.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go.
I just barely got here though, so I'm not sure what's going on. I'm looking around at things, trying to figure it out.
Right. Let's see. So you should have gotten an invitation to join a breakout room, but since you're new, you don't have to. You can actually hang out here with us if you want. What basically everybody's doing at the moment is going into an actual workplace site and changing the theme. So.
I did get an invite and I joined it, but then that stopped this Zoom, so I got out of it.
Okay.
And now I don't know how to go back, but it doesn't really matter. It's a little hard to catch up halfway through, I think.
Well, if you'd like to go in and watch, I can easily throw you in a room.
Sure.
Okay. And you should get a pop-up.
Okay, and that would be not here, but on Moodle.
I'm actually in Zoom, actually.
Right, so I'll get the pop-up in Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I'm not seeing it yet. Oh, wait, join breakout room?
There you go.
So just click that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, room 8.
Perfect. Casey, are you doing okay?
Just a quick note, unless
Yes.
we get a comment from Casey. I forgot to tell them about purging caches so they could see their changes. So if we can bounce between rooms and tell them.
Oh, yeah, okay.
How to purge their cache after they make changes so they can see it. Otherwise, you're going to be highly frustrated.
I'm going to join room 1 and I'll work from the top to the middle.
Okay, I hit 3 already because they asked me.
Okay.
And so they're good. I'll start at the bottom. Hey, Lang.
Room 1 is cool. They were already purging caches, so I'm headed to room 2.
Okay. Hey, I can't get to any room except room 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so let's go. See, and you shouldn't. Okay, I'm sending you to 8.
Okay. Got it.
Does that work? Perfect. Hi, sir. You look like you feel better. You're muted. Sorry.
Turned my camera on, but not my mic.
There we go. I'm hopping between breakout rooms, checking on them, so be right back.
Hi.
Hi, I got my camera working again.
Oh, you're muted. Oh man. Never mind. Not muted.
Is there a lag?
Zoom crashed on me. um
I heard
hold
the,
on.
oh, and then you went away.
Yeah. Okay, so you were telling me something about how you'd set up WooClap so that I could perhaps, of course, I guess they've got their groups now, so it'll be okay. We can just keep going.
Yeah, I just set up open-ended question for each sub category.
Perfect. Okay. Cool.
That was as far as I got, since I didn't have a test student login to play back and forth.
Yeah. I could have used about another couple of hours. All right. Ted's moving from room to room to tell people about purging caches. So, do you have host rights?
I don't think so. How could I tell?
Oh, wait. I don't think you do. Because I think
I
you
can
would
only
say
join the
co-host
one
next.
breakout room.
Okay, that was the problem I was having too. All right, I'm gonna come up and get chapstick real quick.
I didn't unmute. Which room did she say she was visiting last?
Did not catch that.
Did not. No problem. I checked in on everybody except 8 because you went there, and everybody is aware of the purge cache.
Nice.
And then with room 2, one of them was having technical difficulties, so I just re-separated them because there was only 2 people in there.
Oh, okay.
I reallocated them, so we're golden.
Great.
And then we can message all of the break rooms too. So if you want to give them a 5-minute warning or whatever, like that works.
Yeah, there'll be a point here where I just cut them off, but I know that they were trying to work efficiently.
Yep.
Or at least one of them that I ran into.
Well, I'm sorry you couldn't. You should, as a cohort, be able to pop from room to room. So
I know. My Zoom had to relaunch, so I don't have any permissions at the
There
moment.
we go. That's why.
Okay.
Okay, now you're a co-host again.
But well, but I think that was an issue. That was, yeah, I couldn't get to them even before I had the issue.
Can you try it now to see if you've got?
I don't even have the breakout rooms menu down at the bottom.
Okay. See, and I made you I couldn't make you the host, but do you want me to?
Let me check. Let me check the documentation real quick and see if I can figure out.
We're being recorded. Pretty awesome. Everything's going smooth though, mostly.
Moving between.
How long are we giving them to play in there?
The intention was for 3 of them to get their site to a point where they're happy with it.
Okay.
And then, you know, we come back. So
And how long did you expect for 3 of them to get happy with it? What was the budget for that?
I was gonna say 15, 20 minutes would be tops.
Yep, we have we have folks that already have added logos and changed banner colors and everything so far. So
I figured people would be pretty close. So yeah, co-hosts do not have access to the following controls, including starting breakout rooms, moving participants. You would think I should be able to get to different breakout rooms.
I wonder if you can have more than one host.
let me see.
That was my next question.
I bet it's more like a role than a unique thing.
That just gave me a pop-up. Let me see. Or yeah. So 1 person unassigned. Are you still a host then, Ted?
No, they took all my rights away.
Yeah.
Sneaky.
That's unfortunate.
It is. Can you right click on my picture and make me a co-host?
Sure.
So it'd be like a menu on my video. Yeah.
Yep.
That's so weird. David, welcome.
I can only make you a host.
Weird.
So that's actually worse.
Well, I think we'll just have to take turns bouncing between the breakout rooms. You know, my intention was that we would have multiples of us in here so that we could bounce around the breakout rooms, but just discovered a new feature about Zoom.
So am I a co-host?
No, I think you're host, and I've lost all my permissions.
Permissions again.
So, okay, if you'll give me host back, I'll go ahead and bounce into a few of the rooms that I hadn't. Oh, it says I'm co-host now.
There
But
you
yeah,
go. Full host.
I'll go visit a couple of rooms that I haven't seen yet.
Perfect. Be right back.
Okay.
Can't remember what room you guys were already done, huh?
We were room number 7, but we slacked. We got off on tangents and stuff and actually didn't design a theme. We were brainstorming other things. So
Please share.
sorry.
Yeah, we'll share out then once we bring everybody back in.
We failed at the assigned task.
I don't know if this is graded, Daryl.
I hope not.
Michelle, is it graded?
I just have to say that there are always moot coins at stake.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Do we get
That's-
moot coins for being? We had some inspirational discussions.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see now why you guys had like a hard time staying on task, Daryl and Gavin.
And Jeff.
Well,
Explains
and
it
Jeff.
all.
And Jeff.
And Jeff was
Jeff
in there
Hayes.
too. So we immediately went sideways.
That explains. And you guys were randomly assigned that way?
Yeah, I just jumped in
What
and
are
said
the
join room, and it
odds?
was number 7. So
Yeah.
Crazy.
Lucky number 7, hey?
How funny. All right, I'm gonna give you back host rights, Ted. Shall we? I'm inclined to go ahead and give people like 3 minutes and then bring everybody back.
Okay, I'll give a 3-minute warning.
Okay, yeah. I don't know exactly how long we've been in the breakout rooms, but
Okay.
So Michelle, are you going to show us the theme that you created earlier?
the theme that I created earlier.
Well, I assume that while we were doing that, you were busy there creating your own one.
Oh, yes. We were working
Totally.
on
No,
it.
you got to see all my work prior, man. That was it. I'd be curious to see yours.
I'm busy writing a document. I'm here to get inspired.
No, but surely you have some sites with some awesome themes.
Oh, only my best friends call me Shirley. And that's only when I'm singing. Yeah. We've had to do some fun stuff, like one of them had this massive logo and it had tiny writing on it, and it was a massive logo. And it was like, so to get to read, if you wanted to read the writing in the logo, it had to get to be like half the size of the screen nearly.
Oh my
So
gosh.
how do you deal with people like that? Not people like that. How do you deal with graphical challenges like that? Apart from
Yes.
you need to change your logo. This will
Right.
never work anywhere.
Oh. People are coming back on their own. Other people are
They're escaping.
escaping.
Cool. All right. Let me see. Do we have anyone still in breakout rooms?
We do. Actually, it'll give, when I close them, it'll give them a minute. So whenever you're ready,
Okay.
because we are almost at 2 minutes.
Okay. So when it hits 2 minutes, go ahead and close them. And then, like you said, it'll give them a minute. So.
Perfect. All right, 1 minute warning.
Is it set so attendees can present?
Yes, all attendees can present. Yeah.
Very good.
Even in the breakout rooms, they could share screen and everything. So
good.
Hi, Ted. I'm back.
Hi, how are you, Adam?
I'm doing pretty good, buddy. I'm disappointed that we don't get to ice block either, and I don't get to get any more of your oversized T-shirts.
Right? Those were quite the prizes last year, but Yeah, I couldn't figure out a way to do virtual ice blocking. So
No.
Maybe we need
The
to
closest
find a.
equivalent would be sitting on a block of ice just in your office chair.
go
And you
get a
get
bag
sort
of
of the
ice.
same effect. Yeah.
Right.
And
Slide
Michelle,
off your chair.
I'm seconding your idea, and all in favor say aye. Aye.
Depending on how warm it is in your location.
I don't know if anybody's ever broken a limb doing the ice blocking. I've watched you all on Twitter.
Ask Ted.
So, yes, before we start, I am the only one that I know of that's actually been wounded during ice blocking. And Dan Case actually, I believe, didn't want to invite me back, but I was going down the hill face first on this ice block and did a phenomenal roll, looked up, and the ice block hit me square in the forehead. Drew blood and everything.
Nice.
The third
I was
day
there to see that.
rolls must be terrible. They always say the third day after an injury is awful.
I've got a thick head, but all right. I believe everybody's out of their rooms, Michelle. So
Awesome. All right. So I was able to see a little bit of what folks were doing. It looked like you were seriously invested, and I was a little concerned that we might never escape from the breakout rooms. So we decided to call it a bit prematurely. I didn't have anyone say that they had finished all the way. I think we have some overachievers in the group, and but I'm eager to see what you have done. Do we have a few folks who would be willing to share their site? You know, particularly if you feel like you figured out something cool, or you've got a really awesome color scheme or a great logo, anything you want to share, we're happy to take a peek at. Just
Our
to see what
team
the
does.
possibilities are. Okay, go Michael.
Well, I was the assistant to the regional manager, so I don't have anything to show, but my teammate does.
Okay, great. You should have the ability to share your screen.
It was Lori. Is she here?
Lori?
Yeah, Lori.
I'm here. I'm trying to get it to show up.
Got it.
This is really all we got done. We were actually mostly just playing back and forth. What took us, I fully admit, a little longer
Seeing
than
it quite yet.
What's that?
I'm not seeing it quite yet. Is anyone else
you're
seeing?
not?
No.
Oh, hold on one second.
You should see a share screen button down at the bottom. There we go. Here it comes.
Got it?
boom.
Yes.
Do we see it? All right, sorry. Apparently I'm being challenged today. So we ended up actually changing our theme, and what took me a few minutes longer, it took us all a few minutes longer than I like to admit, is that finding that tenant then in order to actually make changes. So what we did finally realize is that under appearance, it literally is right there. So while when you change themes, your little boxes might be gone up here that are kind of nice, that are part of that workplace Moodle theme. It's all those options are still there. It's just a matter of finding them once you hit the administration part of it. So
right, that is a really good point. So right now, are you using a boost theme? Is that what you're using?
Yeah, that's what we went over.
Yeah, because we switched to boost because we didn't seem to be making none of our changes seem to be affecting anything. That's because we had kind of forgotten the whole tenant thing.
It took us longer than we like to admit to really realize what was going on.
So because we were trying to make changes, but all the changes would only show up in the regular boost theme because we weren't changing the individual tenants.
We were changing back here rather than actually in tenant.
The main one, which was being overridden by the workplace theme.
Workplace theme.
Yeah, so
got it.
Once we figured that out, it all started coming online, and we started. So we didn't get far, but at the same time, it was kind of nice to figure out how it all comes together.
Exactly. Yeah, you learned some important information. And I think it really is a good point to to know, like, if you were to move to a different theme, like I have been able to find everything through those admin menus. You just lose like that workplace launcher, and you lose the ability to pretty easily and quickly switch between tenants. I can't guarantee that everything is there, but yeah, most of it I've been able to find though. So cool.
But now we know. Now we know we don't change the main theme. We change the tenant theme. See?
Yes. And it did take me. I remember one time I loaded a logo into the area you were loading into, and I was like, "What is the point of this logo box? It's not doing anything." But yeah, you have to go to the.
I said that at least 3 times. Well, what is the point?
I know.
Which
yes.
brings up a really key point is you can actually make your styles for each tenant look different under the same workplace site.
Yes.
So you guys just discovered it by accident, but if you want one tenant to be a school and another tenant to be another school, you can actually make those tenants look different.
Yeah, so which would be handy for a school district where each of the high schools has different colors and the middle schools have different colors. And
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, hey, this is Daryl. Something else to point out from my experience, what you guys have been stumbling through here, is if you go to site admin and then appearance and then tenant personalization like you did, you'll notice in the breadcrumbs that it's taking you to the default tenant. So it's the same as going to tenants, default tenant, and appearance. It takes you to the same place. So the main quirky thing here is that when you start out with your site and you're the user, the main user, you're also a site administrator, you belong to the default tenant. If you add a new tenant and start tweaking the appearance there, you're not going to see anything, because even though you log in with the custom URL for tenant number 2, 3, whatever, you're still in the default tenant, and that's what you're going to see.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you need to bounce back and forth between the browser you're logged into as the site admin and then another browser, private window, whatever, viewing the custom URL for those subsequent tenants so you can see what they look like. I went round and around and around in that for a while, like thinking I was setting the site, and then I was setting the tenant, and then the tenant somehow changed the site, and I thought I broke it. So I'd fix the site and the tenant would go haywire, and I didn't realize I was changing the same thing every time. If that makes sense.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, it's also good to, whenever you create a tenant, next thing you do is you create a user who's a tenant admin.
Right.
And then you log in as that admin and they manage their site.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a process, and even potentially not use a default tenant for anything. It's
right.
And the tenancy or not.
Right. And the default tenant, regardless of what it's called, even if you rename it or something, that default tenant drives the appearance for the main site before anybody logs in. Right?
Depends on the login page. It depends on what URL they're going to, right? So if you're pointing people to the URL, yeah.
Right,
yeah,
but I'm saying disregarding the login page and that sort of thing, the brand for the site without a tenant URL at the end of it is driven by the default tenant.
Yes. Yeah, well, and it's driven like that. That's one of those settings that applies across all tenants. You know, like the site front page, whatever I define it as. So far in my own experience, that site front page would work the same across all tenants. And I was actually just working on an issue like this earlier today. Similarly with the dashboard, even, you know, that dashboard is not really unique per tenant. If I add something to the dashboard when I'm logged in, looking at one tenant, those changes apply across all the tenants. I know it's on the roadmap. I saw, I was investigating that, and there are ways around it, but it's the multi-tenancy is kind of an interesting thing, you know, because it's like different sites, but in some ways it's not quite. But the amount of maintenance and overhead is a lot lower than maintaining, you know, multiple sites.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you guys for sharing. Does anyone else have a site they'd like to share?
Aaron Miller, did our
like
login logo ever show up for you? You're muted.
What was that?
You're Karen Miller. You're muted? Did our login logo ever show up?
No, we ended up getting out of there before it got there. So
Okay, maybe I'll share mine if.
Yeah, great.
I'll be curious to see if yours looks anything like mine, Floyd, because I was trying to do it on mine
Yeah.
and get it to work.
Oh, I
Is
love
ours
that picture.
nice.
Is ours showing now? Yeah. And then, so Karen D made image, changed the site colors. I don't have that on mine, but we put in this little logo up at the top, which is actually the mountain in Helena with a puma on top.
Oh, cool.
So we do have we were able to change the logo. And Karen D, if you want to present, you could show the colors that you changed.
Well, except for some
no,
reason
I guess it's
can't.
Karen Miller. It's your site, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
So why don't you share that and show the colors that we changed? So we
I'd be
got three
curious
things.
too to know where you had changed the login for the logo for the login page.
Well, that's just the login background image. That's what we changed there.
Right. Oh, and that's what wasn't showing up before. Oh, look at those colors.
Yeah, originally we had orange on the side. It looked very, very Bronco-ish. But the other Karen decided it was a little too much.
Nice. And what color is your footer? Because it was green, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's green.
Can you scroll? Yeah.
You could go to the settings, Karen Miller, and show the color codes that you select.
Okay.
And Karen D, I guess Karen D selected them.
Get off that.
Oh wow, those colors are so lovely. They just jump out, don't they?
Neat.
Looks like you got a bunch of things changed though in the time you had.
Yeah. What I think is really interesting, and I have no idea how this works, but like if you change the nav bar down the left-hand side to a light color, all the icons and all the text over there turn dark. And if you change it to a light color, or wait, did I say that backwards? Anyway, if you put a light background, they turn dark. And if you put a dark background, they turn light. You know, I'm sure if you land somewhere in the middle, you're going to have issues, but I've never had to change the color of the icons or the text in that nav bar. They just always somehow end up right. And I've seen them both white and dark.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually tried to change the background colors so the icons would disappear just to be annoying, but it wouldn't let me.
Oh, that's cool. I don't know how I have no idea how they do that. But the other thing that I've struggled with is, you see like that little gray area between the yellow and the white? I've had nav bars that are gray and it's not quite the right gray to match that other gray. So I know Ted had figured out how to change that and how to even put it like the image from the login page, actually, he had carried through there. So he had like those clouds on the login page and you could just see the edges of the cloud behind that. I cut someone off, sorry.
Nope.
How do you get back to that screen that Floyd showed? I haven't been able to get to, I guess, like the front page of landing page of the site.
You have to log out.
Yeah, so if I go, I'm going to go there now again. All right, so is my screen showing?
Yep.
Then if I go here and log out, that's when I get to this login page.
Oh.
There you go.
Then you have to be sure you can log in again.
Yeah. Good point. That is the trick. Yeah. Cool. All right. We probably have time for one more if anyone else would like to share.
You betcha.
We'll
I'll
share.
show.
Go, Adam.
Sorry, I'll show the absolute thing that you should not do. So we've got our login image, and then we've got a login icon, but then I changed the link color to where you can barely see it. So if anybody forgets their password, they just kind of intuitively know. But then when we log in, oh, that's awesome.
So now you've forgotten your password, huh?
No, I must have fat fingered it the first time, because there it
Workplace
is.
revenge.
There we go.
So to show you the total awfulness of all of this, there you go. So all the links on everything to include your login page are barely readable. Your bottom footer is terrible. Your navigation bar clashes with the footer, and then your header icon is just another primary color that doesn't do well. And then you got this itty bitty icon right up here. It says, yay.
That's awesome.
Still awesome.
You know what I think is funny is I'm trying to imagine if I took that green in your footer to that color palette website and had it try to generate colors to go with that. I'm really curious what that would look like.
I can give you the color code if you wanted it.
Oh, I can. Yeah, it's okay. Just, yeah, I would be interested to. It would be fun to play with. Nice. So I ran into that same issue on the login page, like getting those text colors to be right, because I did a dark background on one of those, and then I needed the text to be white, but the text that was white, whatever I was controlling with that, was also the color of the text when you type into the login form. And the login form box is white. So I ended up having like white on white. So I had to use that CSS sheet to figure out how to do that, because it's not all the same. The other thing that I've run into is there's some color code that you set in these colors that impacts the colors on the quiz navigation, you know, that quiz navigation block. And I've ended up with the quiz navigation being like white on white. I found somebody shared, I think Tim Hunt shared in the Moodle forums, a little snippet of CSS to fix that too. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting puzzle.
Yeah, and now it's not even letting me edit anything, or maybe it's just spinning. Yeah, I think it's just spinning because my network connectivity through VPN is really slow.
Got it.
Because I was going to show you the colors, but I got nothing.
Lang wants to squeeze in here before we switch gears. Gavin says he's seen Moodle sites look this good. You know, the one thing you're missing on that one, Adam, is you probably needed some dancing giraffes or something like that.
Yeah, I needed some motion, some graphics interface formats.
Yeah. Ooh, can you imagine if you had a big long animated GIF across that top header bar? And just to be clear, there's a lot of sarcasm here, because those are.
But Michelle, I think Blink. Bring back Blink.
Oh, Blink. Yes, that would be cool too.
I'd love to be able to interchange all those different colors so they cycle through like the blue, the red, the bright green, and the yellow on every single piece of the entire page. So it's like it's like a kaleidoscope.
Yes.
Every time you log in, give you a headache after 5 minutes.
Yeah. You know what I haven't played with, but I'd be curious to do is on the login page where you have that big image, is put like a video there. That would be so cool looking.
And not allow the user to log in until the video's done and make it like 7 minutes long.
Oh God. You just love to torture people. Yes. Lang, did you want to show your site real quick? and then we'll go on to the other things. I don't know if Lang is talking. He had posted in the chat. Okay.
How about Lang's Rebel Alliance site?
I know, that's what I was trying to,
Mm.
I don't know where Lang went.
He's muted.
Oh, that's the problem.
Lang,
He's
you're
sharing
muted.
now.
There we go. I had to leave real quick to let the preferences use Zoom.
Oh my gosh, that looks so cool.
So there's that. I didn't do much, but there's that. And now, when you were talking about the tenants, when you create multiple tenants, this is where I was getting tripped up. We were talking about it before. As an admin, it's defaulting to the default, but then you can switch tenants, and then there you go.
Nice.
So I like that, as far as, you know, for the admin being able to switch through all your tenants really quickly and not having to go like, say, to the site admin and then, you know, wherever to switch among them.
Lang,
yeah,
you're my new hero. Just saying.
I think, yeah, that's really cool. It's so cool, like what came out of all of those, but that came together really nicely.
It's just because I'm a Star Wars nerd. Just
cool. If you end up working on your site more and you would like to take a screen capture and add it to the gallery in the course, I would love that. I would love to see all of those that you've shared in there too, because it's always cool for people to be able to see like what kinds of options are available and to use their imagination. So, all right, now let's take a look at some of the other things that we can do with your Moodle Workplace site. And the good thing is that a lot of these things will go a little bit more quickly. So the next feature to talk about is multi-tenancy. And as I talked about, you can have basically multiple sites within your one workplace site. It means you don't have to run multiple upgrades. It means you don't have to duplicate everything across sites, maintain content across sites, because there are ways to maintain centralized courses that you can use across tenants. So that's an option too. Definitely a lot of advantages. Questions to consider when it comes to deciding whether or not you need tenants. I'll be really interested to know from other folks like what questions you've run into, because this is not wholly unique to Workplace. But the questions that drive me when I'm trying to decide whether they need tenants or not is, one, do they need different login pages? Do you need that landing page to look totally different? Do you need different URLs? So do I need one site logging into, you know, Moodle.xyz school and the other one Moodle.abc school? And then again, do you need different people to manage the users at those different sites to be able to create those accounts, assign them to courses, and wholly oversee that without giving them admin access to the entire site? Those are kind of my drivers. Does anyone else, particularly those who have workplace experience, have any suggestions in terms of trying to decide whether or not you need a tenant or not? And David, I'm not sure if someone will have logged into your demo site. Ted, can you help him with that?
Yep, already on it. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, cool, thanks.
I should have said
right.
something. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's hard to get a word in edgewise sometimes. All right, so let's change up this question a little bit for the multi-tenancy then. I'm curious about use cases that you might see needing multi-tenancy for. So just like we were thinking about real life applications, not the nitty-gritty details, but real life applications for the appearance, you know, what about the multi-tenancy? I think somebody had mentioned somewhere else, you know, maybe you have a corporate like Unilever that has I've just lost the word. Anyway, has other corporate entities underneath it. Maybe you have a university that has different departments. Maybe you have a company that has different different training programs, maybe internal clients, external clients. So if you're still in the Moodle workshop course, if you capture some of your ideas here, like use cases where you might see a need for multi-tenancy. And you can think about your own organization's use case.
Are you asking for like use case examples?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had one that it was a single company with 2 locations that serve completely different purposes. One's is what I call the white collar side, sales, accounting, management, that sort of thing. And the other is the blue collar side, which is inventory control, shipping, freight, things like that. Same company, same brand, all of that stuff. But they're the 2 branches of the company operate differently. They have their own different structures, their own needs for reporting and training and accountability and management and all of that stuff. And they were going down the road of setting up 2 completely different sites. And so for them, even though it wasn't so much a branding issue, it was more about how the different channels of the company operate, because they're so different, but they still need to communicate with each other.
That's a great example.
And share things. So
yeah. And that's the one thing like people tend to think about with the multi-tenancy. They try to think about all the separation, but the nice thing about multi-tenancy is you can still pull centralized reports and have access to all the information in one place. And then, I think we broke, we broke Woo Clap. Nap time. All right, well, we'll just forego that step. I can adapt. So what I'd like to do
Michelle,
then,
may I ask one question before we move on? Is it possible to have subtenants under a tenant?
talk to me about functionality rather than so that I know
let's
what
say
you're talking
we
about.
have a school corporation, and that's divided into high school, middle school, elementary school, and then under each, like under the high school, I would have high school 1, high school 2. It's sort of like you can do with EMA or Totara, where you have a tenant and then subtenants cascaded down.
There is not a proper, at least not that I'm aware of, a proper subtenant structure. If you were to give me this use case, and actually the K-12 school I was working with the other day is similar to this, I would actually just do a high school tenant, high school tenant, high school tenant, middle school tenant, I would do a tenant for each school.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think in that use case, you're not going to want, there's not really one person that's going to oversee all of the high schools, and want reports all across all of those. So I think having the separate tenants would be okay. If you did have the use case where you thought somebody would need access and they would manage the enrollments and all of those things for all of those high schools, you could set that up as one tenant, and then you could do a theme per course or a theme per category and use some of the more conventional Moodle ways of differentiating, roles and look and feel and things like that within that tenant. So,
okay.
Yeah. Karen D asks, can you duplicate and import courses among tenants? Yes, you can. So the category structure for your tenants, I go to courses, and you can move students or users between tenants as well. So when you have a new workplace site, you have the default tenant that we were talking about. And per Gavin's recommendation, I would tend to keep that default tenant for just the central organization, and then do your branches as separate tenants or separate categories. And then each of your tenants becomes a separate category. So I say school 1, I create that category. And then when I go to create my tenants, or I could do this the other way around, I could create the tenant and ask it to just create the category for me. You will associate the tenant with a category. So for example, the default tenant is associated with this existing category. I could change my mind and say it's associated now with school 1, but the category structure works the same as it does in Moodle. So I can move courses in between them really easily, just as I could on a regular Moodle site. Yeah. Where do departments fit in? Yeah, we'll do that next.
Michelle, one question really quick. You mentioned you can move users between tenants.
Mm-hmm.
Can you show me how to do that?
Yes, it took me forever to figure this out because the documentation did not exist.
I was told by
And-
Moodle HQ you can't do it.
Oh, maybe it's an Easter egg. So let you guys break and create your tenants, and then I will create another tenant rather than having you guys watch me create the tenant and add some users. And then I will show you how to do that. I'll see if I can remember how I did it, because I had the use case, I had to do it, and it took me forever, to figure it out.
I'd love to know.
All right, so here's what I'd like you to do. So we're going to go to the workplace launcher again, and you can work on the same site that you've been working on, or if you want to trade places and work on a different site, think about what your use case is, come up with something that either fits your organization, or you could carry on your Star Wars theme. I'm trying to imagine what the tenants might be there. Carry on with your theme, and then you go to tenants, and then you say add a new tenant, and then it'll ask you to fill in the fields. And then if you want to see about adding users to those tenants, you can snag that spreadsheet, or you can just create a couple of users. We will get to adding more users later too, though. So I'm gonna make this shift pretty quick because it shouldn't take too long to create a tenant structure. So play with that. Let's do 5-7 minutes-ish. So I'll set a timer this time. Ted, can you send people, can they go back to the same breakout rooms?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
So if you actually need to move to a different breakout room, let me know. But yeah, it didn't save the setting for me for some reason, but it should stick this time if you want to keep the same breakout room. But you all get to work with new people for this one.
Whoop, whoop. All right. Let us know if you have questions.
And we'll pop in to check on you.
Yes. Okay. All right, so Ted, I'm gonna test this moving tenants, moving users. If you wanna pop between, and I set a timer.
We can put people in different rooms.
I'll let you be in charge of that. I never really realized that you had such limited, capabilities with that. So are these workplace sites 3.9?
They are.
Neato. I didn't expect that. That's pretty cool.
They might even be 391.
Woohoo.
That went out. Ooh, that went out during Australia's Workday.
Yeah. I noticed the new migration feature, so that's what clued me in. It looks like Jimmy needs added to a breakout room. Sorry.
There may be a mix.
Okay.
Because it tends to fall around when they push it out. Tends to fall around the time we do the update.
Yeah.
So any sites Ted did yesterday may or may not have gotten the 0.1.
Auto 0.1.
Can you reassign Jimmy to a breakout room?
Oh, roger that. He is now assigned to 3.
Okay.
He's got 2 actual users, so he might have had to break out and then
Michelle, I think Blue Clap maybe is back online now.
Okay, cool.
the MT moot broke. Blue Clap.
It could be. They might be in real trouble tomorrow.
So Jimmy said he timed out and had to log in again.
Okay.
I'm going to join breakout room 4 and 5 because they only have 2 people.
Okay.
And see how they're doing.
Very good.
Got about a 40-minute window.
Got it.
Let's
As soon as I get these users uploaded, then we'll pull back out. Just need to get a couple sample users so I can show how to move them.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, because they might not be able to apply it, but talk about the concepts because they did a really good job on the theme.
Yeah, some cool stuff. Okay, go ahead and pull the trigger.
Right. And then Floyd asked a question, maybe you'll get to this later, but where do departments fit in? And we might be able to talk to that point too. Nice job, Michelle.
Thanks. I'm so glad that there are multiples of us.
I went from controlling all the moot coins to having 0.
Okay. Did you do the close thing?
It did. Everybody should be coming back.
Good deal.
Yeah.
After I created the new tenant, it kind of like did a refresh. Would that have been the same as logging out and logging in? Because now I see a peak bar at the top where I changed the header color.
Ah, yes. So this is actually a neat feature that I really appreciate is if you have the same theme on both tenants, then it will by default change the color of that header bar when you switch between themes to help you keep track of which theme you're or which tenant you're in. And I can tell you, like, having had worked on sites before that have like a production site and a dev site or something like that, and doing the work on the wrong one, I have appreciated that feature. But yeah, it shouldn't normally overwrite theme changes you had made, but it will definitely if you were still left at that turquoise colored bar across the top, it will change that. Okay. So while I get these users loaded that I just created so I can show the process of moving between tenants, tell me what you figured out or what questions you had.
I did not see the bar change when I switched between tenants. No color change.
Okay. Let me see if it does it for me on my site.
Mine is changing when I switch.
Okay, cool. I think it's a little dependent on, you know, what you've changed in your theme and where. Perhaps.
Yeah, because I noticed Lang's changed too when he changed tenants.
Let me save this one more time. Other questions? Ahas? Oh man, Jeff, you executed the email addresses really well. Okay, we'll just see if this works. So I'm uploading users and it's giving me some unhappiness. I'm hoping I at least just get a few users. I got 46, that's good enough. So what I did to create my users is I took the spreadsheet that we were working from and I added a column called tenant here. and then I put the tenant ID number. And in my use cases, I generally just make the tenant ID and the name of the tenant the same. And then I was able to just upload users into the tenants. So hopefully, if I go into my tenants now, I should see some users. Bingo. Look at that, a nice even split. Wouldn't have guessed that. So if I go into tenant 1 now, and I look at my list of users, so I have this list of checkboxes. So Daryl, this will answer your question. If I had uploaded these users into the wrong tenant, I could hit this checkbox, or I can pick individual users. And I can say, and I don't know if you're seeing this drop-down menu, but my drop-down menu gives me the option to move between tenants. So I can move between tenant 1 and tenant 2. So that's the way you can move users between tenants. It's also a little weird. I'm trying to think about moving users from not being in a tenant at all into a tenant. I think I ran into questions around that. Because if I go to add a new user here, it's like just creating a brand new user. So if I were trying to add a user that was already in the system to a tenant, probably what I would do is I would do via the spreadsheet upload. You know, I'd export the users that I want to move and then add that tenant column and assign them to a tenant that way. I think in earlier versions of Workplace, this was not as intuitive, and or I looked all over the admin users area and expected to find it there, and finally found it here.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That did not used to be there.
No, I think it's gotten easier. And
Yeah,
we were just
okay.
talking while you guys were working about what version of Workplace you guys are on, because they just released, like on the 14th, 3.9.391. And this migration feature is part of 3.9. So, you know, as we were talking about, it takes a while to create 75 Workplace sites. And so some of you may have this slightly older version, like 3.8, and you might not have this migration feature, among a few other things. So I'd be curious, Daryl, if you were looking at your Workplace sandbox, if you have the 3.8 version or the 3.9 version, and if it looks any different. 3.9.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm looking at a 3.8.2 site right now. Total, not one of the ones that you have, just a different one. And I'm seeing the checkbox to move a user between tenants. I don't remember seeing that before.
It took me forever to find it. It did not occur to me to look for it there, and it was not documented.
Right.
So
okay, well, that's good.
But yeah, it exists. It's there. It just, you know, is a bit. Oh, can a user be placed in multiple tenants? That's a good question. No, I don't believe so. I have not tested this, but I did do this thought exercise at one point for another client, and I don't think so, because they have different login pages and the user really does live in one tenant or the other. Like I can't assign a user to both tenants. I have not found a way to do that. And it makes some sense to me if I think about it as really two separate sites. Now, what if you have courses that people from both tenants need to get access to? I would put those courses in that default tenant or create a centralized tenant. I think the default tenant is your best place for it, and you can rename this. I often rename this the name of the organization or something like that. But I would put my courses that are used across tenants in the default tenant course category, and then you can enroll users from both tenants into those courses, and they will automatically, if they're part of a program, they'll be in there as a part of a group, and so it'll still feel like separate courses for them. But so Jim, I'd say it depends on your use case, but I don't know, has anyone else thought about that?
Well, as I mentioned, often what people might think of tenants could be used as just as simple hierarchies. And it is a matrix hierarchy management system with departments, so that Bob can actually be a manager in some place, be an employee in other places, multiple roles simultaneously. So technically then, if you have two different hierarchies which are pretending to be one school and another with different management structures, you then could have somebody in both. So like a school examiner having a role in both tenant structure, or not, sort of hierarchy structures. That's the way it was designed, to try and have a conceptual difference.
So they would actually, so what happens then, because right now when you hit the login page, if I come to the login page, you theoretically get directed to one tenant or the other, right? If you have that role in, so are they using the exact same account, the same credentials in both of those tenants?
It's one tenant, but you're using the concept of separate hierarchy structures.
Okay.
Because they're essentially different. I mean, if you basically have one framework which says school district A, another framework says school district B, the interaction between the users and those, although they're in the whole, they're in the place, reporting lines and all of that sort of stuff is very separate. So you can basically use it in that way. It all depends. Do you need absolute isolation or partial, and is it reporting based? That kind of thing.
Yeah. We had one client that we started out doing multiple tenants, a lot of tenants, because they said, we need the users to be entirely separate. They need to know that they could not see each other. We don't want any crossover between the data. And we started down that path. And the more we worked with it, we figured out like, they're the only ones really accessing the site from an admin perspective. And if we did all these different tenants, it was harder for them to get the data they wanted in a nice centralized fashion. And so we ended up just doing one tenant, and then we created, as you talked about, the organizational hierarchy to manage that, because the administrators at each organization they were serving, really we just set those up to get reports, and that did the trick. So we didn't need the multi-tenancy. Good question.
It is, and it's a good challenge. I mean, I think the whole thing with departments and roles and jobs, once people get their head around that, it will blow their mind. If that makes sense.
Yes. So I think with that, we should probably head to that next. I'm going to bypass programs and certifications right now, because I do find those to be more intuitive than the organizational hierarchy. And we'll talk about organization structure next. So the organization structure is how you manage the users in your site. And again, as I was saying earlier, they're not necessarily tied to roles in the system. You can have this whole system of departments and positions that operate independently of roles within your Moodle site. So if we wanted to create an organization structure, we'll come back to this workplace launcher. And I did find the Moodle documentation to be helpful here in helping me think about how this works. Basically, you have two systems, two frameworks that you use to organize your users. One of them is departments, and sometimes it's a little tricky to like not think about departments as departments because they're named departments. There are lots of ways that you might create this structure. And then you have positions. And again, in some organizations, a position will be a position, but in others, not so much. What the Moodle documentation suggested is that typically you will have one side or the other of these being flat, like no hierarchy at all, or very little hierarchy. And then the other side will provide your relational hierarchy with the levels. So for example, I might have on the department side, sales, marketing, HR, product development, all of those departments. And those departments are really equal to each other for the most part, right? there is no need for me to say that product development is over sales or anything like that. So I could have a fairly flat structure here in the departments, and then my hierarchy might come within the positions. So I might then have, okay, my CEO, and then I have, well, let's say I have my VP of sales, and then underneath the VP of sales, I have regional sales managers, and underneath them I have district sales managers, and then I have sales. You know, I have that one hierarchy for the sales team, and then I might have another hierarchy for the product development, and yet another one for the HR. Interestingly enough, it is also possible that you might use the same hierarchy across different departments, meaning if the structure in sales and the structure in product development is the same, I don't necessarily need to create two different position structures to accommodate that. I just use the fields that I need. So an example of this site is probably a little unconventional in terms of their use, but they serve organizations that they provide training around, you know, athletic healthcare. And if I look at their department structure, they are serving clients who are NCAA Division I. They are also serving high school associations. So they might have a high school say, you know, we need to get this training for all of our coaches or all of our athletes. So they have all of these different departments. And then within these departments, they have a little bit of structure. So, and you could have multiple layers here. So they could have said, we're going to take the West and the North and the South and the East, and then create subcategories within these. They didn't go very deep in this though. It can develop over time. Let me see, I think they have this one. Yeah, anyway, so this side is relatively flat. And then on the position side, they know that their institutions generally they have a primary point of contact who's their site administrator. And this is a site administrator, not a Moodle site administrator, but this is the administrative contact. And then they have all of these roles. And even though we have all of these departments on the other side, at every one of those, basically all of these positions apply. So we didn't need to create a separate position structure or position framework for each of those kinds of organizations. Yes, the parent role is not going to be as useful in a university setting, but you know, it's not hurting anything to have that position there. So this is one way that you could create the structure. So I think if you start by figuring out that, you know, one side's going to be kind of flat and the other one's going to be, you know, a little bit more hierarchical. So maybe on this one, sales should be over everything. Yeah, says the sales guy, right? All right, so let's maybe do this one together so that we can see how it works and ask questions along the way. So somebody throw out a use case, either for your organization or one that you think we can have a little fun with. I'm game to go either way. But I will need input. Brains are getting full.
Since nobody else is going to speak up, how about let's go simple and do a state agency.
A state agency. Okay, so tell me about this state agency. And thank you for participating here.
So this agency has 5 different divisions.
Okay.
And so there's an executive above all 5 of those, but then each of those 5 divisions has its own administrator, and then nested inside those divisions are bureaus, and then underneath that are programs, and then underneath that would be just the general staff.
Okay. So are you thinking on the department side, we do those 5 divisions?
Yeah. Yeah, because those are flat.
Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to create a new framework, and I'm going to name the top level here state agency framework. One thing to note is that in terms of assigning people to things and programs and courses and rules, that the very top level is like not useful. So like I can't say, please assign something to everybody in the state agency framework. I can start assigning things at the levels below that. So if you knew you had a situation where you needed to be able to set someone to oversee the entire framework, or you needed to assign something to everyone in the entire framework, then I'd say let's create another level up. But in this case, we're going to assume that this will work. Okay, so give me a name for one division, and we can make these up, or if you have real names, that's cool too.
Sure. How about water?
Water. And I, again, tend to just duplicate the name as long, well, so here's an interesting tidbit. David, one of our developers, recently discovered that the ID numbers are not required to be unique. I don't know if that's something they've changed. Probably should be. But okay, so water is 1, and then I'm just going to hit that plus sign and add the next one.
Trust lands.
Say it again.
Trust lands.
Got it. Okay, and I could do subs if I needed to, just by hitting the plus on each one of those.
Director's office. Conservation. Oil and gas.
Okay. All right, so this gives me my department framework. And then over here, we'll do those positions that you talked about. So I'm going to do a similar sort of thing. Now, in the example that I shared with you, we had different position frameworks depending on the kind of organization or where they were coming from. If you had an internal set of clients and an external, you might have different frameworks for those. In this one, I think it's going to be fairly straightforward. Thank you very much. So we can probably just run with this one framework. So you said you have an executive above all, right?
Right.
So I would, again, do the ID numbers here just so that if I need to import this information, I can. I'm going to bypass that step just for efficiency. Now, when you create these positions, you can decide whether or not they have a manager kind of role. So I can make them a global manager, which means they can oversee everything, or a department manager, which means they can see within the same department. I will tell you that the reporting is something I've done less of with folks because people are so invested in setting things up. And you know, I'm still tinkering with figuring out exactly when and where to use these to their greatest effect. More often than not, I'm finding department manager is useful, but that it may not restrict access as much as I might like in some cases. So I say always test this. But it would make sense to me in this case, the executive might want to see everything. And then you can choose what they have access to. So do you want this person allocating users to programs or certifications, viewing user reports, receiving notifications? My guess is at this level, this person might like to view user reports, but they don't want to be involved in the day-to-day.
Exactly.
And then, so is the next person going to be like below the executive? Like, should I indent them?
Yes.
Okay. Who will be my next person then?
Division admin.
Okay. And this one might more likely be a department manager and actually do some of the work related to allocations and things like that.
How did you do that indent?
Oh, so it depends on where I hit the plus sign. So if I hit the plus sign here, it's going to indent it below there. If I'd hit it here, then it would create it at the same level of executive.
Okay,
If,
cool.
Yeah, and if you get it wrong, it is possible to like drag these and move them around. So now I've just made them at the same level. Sometimes you have to hold your tongue just right to get them to land where you want them to, but it is possible. So now we've got the division admin at the same level as the exec, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Is the next person under the exec or under the division admin?
Division.
Okay, so we'll do another indent by clicking on that plus sign.
That'd be bureau chief.
Okay. And is the next person below the bureau chief or the division admin?
Bureau chief.
Okay.
And that's program manager.
All right. And then I might stop there so we can look at what it looks like to actually assign someone a job.
Yeah.
So we have departments and we have positions now. So if I come over here to job assignments, then I can say, I'm gonna pick a user. Let's see, I should have, I wonder if I don't have these users in this tenant. Thinking about this for a second. Oh, I'm operating the default tenant, darn it. So I created that whole structure in the default tenant. Really, I should have created that in the in one of the other tenants, because then I would actually have some people in there. So yeah, it's kind of tricky because there are some areas of the site admin structure that run across everything. So you don't have to think about what tenant you're in. And then there are some places where you really do. So let me just carry through the.
This would be a good place to do a quick user switch then to a new tenant.
Oh, good point. Okay, so if I go back to tenants and I go to tenant 2, I'll give myself some users and move them to the default tenant. Thanks, Lloyd, good idea. Okay, so now I want to go back to the org structure. I'm in my default tenant. I'm going to give people a job. So Chris today gets a new job, and his job is going to be, ooh, lucky day, executive in the water department. And you can set the start date, you can set the end date. It is possible for people to have more than one job at a time. You can also say their job started this date and ended this date, and then they would have, you know, one job after the next. From here, with these org structures in place and things like that, you can start to play with those dynamic rules. This will probably be a little bit more useful once you have some courses in here too, but realizing we have about 7 minutes left, we're gonna fast forward. So let's say, I don't think I have a certificate. We're gonna make this, we're gonna make a test rule here. I know I can do dynamic rules based on position, but I wanted you to see this interface. So the dynamic rules interface gives me a whole list of conditions here. And like I said, this list is getting better, like with each iteration of Moodle Workplace. But I could say if a user is in a certain department, So let's say they're in water. I don't care about the start date in this case. So I've just set the if, and you can do multiple ifs. So I could say they have to be in water, they have to have this position, they have to have completed this certification, or maybe their certification was suspended. And then I go to the action. And then I can do any number of things here. I can send them a notification. I can issue certificates. More often than not, you're probably issuing certificates once people have completed a program or a course. I could say you work in the water department, therefore you need to be assigned to this collection of courses because these are all the users, are all the courses related to your field of work. I'm going to go with the notification because I know that will function because I don't have programs in place yet. And then the neat thing here is that you can put into this notification whatever you want. So you can tailor this. If you have completed this certification, I'm going to send you a message that says, hey, great work. It's awesome that you completed that. Or if they haven't, you know, you can take whatever tone you need. You can put the full name in there, make it seem really personalized. I save it, and then I enable it. And then that notification will go out via the messaging system, and it'll also send out via email as well. So they'll get a copy that way too. But we have about 5 minutes left. What's high on your list yet that you have questions about? It can be about anything and everything we've talked about here. If it's Fringe, Moodle Workplace, that's okay too. Let me ask then. Oh, yeah, please.
Well, I was just going to say one thing I'll contribute is when you get into there and you start putting things together and you start looking at dynamic rules, my suggestion to customers that I've worked with is to spend some time to kind of back out a little bit, kind of get an awareness of the tools that are available to you, but then hit the whiteboard and do a little bit of mind mapping. Because if you say, okay, I'm going to create a rule, and it's like, oh, wow, I can create a rule based on a position which we don't have yet, or a department that we haven't created or even thought about yet. So do we do that and then come back and hit rules again, and then go to cohorts and then put our program together and then come back to a course? And so it's, you got to have to like look at the whole picture at some point and decide which direction you're going instead of trying to do everything all at once.
That is really good advice, because I struggled with that just in even thinking about today's workshop, right? Like what takes priority? Is it the programs over the org structure? Well, they're kind of related. I'm going to assign programs based on how the organization works, or create programs. And then the other thing that I found is like, gosh, look at this site. This site doesn't have that many courses. It has 30 courses, and we have 12 pages of dynamic rules. We have 30, 60 different programs, because they have programs based on their role, based on their position. And then we've actually done badges in a special way here, because the default functionality for Moodle badges, you can't award a particular, so they're using the same badge for multiple people. Like all these roles can get an activity management badge, but the requirements for event management are different than facilities management. So we had to actually just create a special rule to make that happen, and bypass the default Moodle badge functionality. But yeah, that's really good advice, Daryl, is to really think about it. And then when you do create those dynamic rules, unless you have really good reason not to enable them, I say go ahead and enable them, because we started creating rules on this site, and then once we were ready to launch, you know, we thought we would just enable these as we're ready, and it was quite a chore to go back through and make sure you had all of the dots connected to make everything flow right. So
I think with the other aspect is rules. What's the purpose of them? They're generally to automate expensive manual tasks. Like if a new staff member comes in and you have to go in and specifically put them into, well, that induction, and because they're a salesperson, they're on that course and that course. That will help define which rules you actually need. So I think that's a bit like the whiteboarding, but even just if you roll out for 6 months, and then where are you really wasting your time? Dynamic rules will fix that for you.
Definitely. And that's part of what makes this useful for a wide variety of organizations, not just workplaces.
Yeah, I'd love to see every university use something like this. Really cool.
Yeah, yeah. There are very few clients of ours now that are adopting just straight Moodle, because there's one thing or another that just meets a need. So.
Yeah, I remember when this was being scoped, it was my sort of bet that, no one, after 2 to 3 years, once it matured, no one would want a straight Moodle, because programs, certifications, those kind of things are just so powerful.
They're really useful. Yeah. All right. Well, the time has come. If you have any other questions about Workplace, if you'd like to talk about your needs more, Jeff and Jonathan and I and others on our team will be available in our booth space throughout the remainder of the conference. I'm doing a session as well tomorrow morning at 8 Mountain Time, and again Friday morning at 8 Mountain Time on different topics. I'd love to see you there. And if there's anything else we can do for you, feel free to reach out. Our contact information is on the site. We're happy to answer your questions. Thanks for hanging out. I know it makes for a long day. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, Michelle. Great job.
Good job, Michelle.
Thanks.
Just to let everybody know, don't forget to join the open
Social.
moot session
The social.
at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I don't know what it is in your time zone, but.
And don't forget to fill out the evaluation in the course for the session.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Michelle and Ted. It was very informative. Yeah, it helped to clear the air about some things for me.
Oh, good. So glad to help.
Appreciate it. And everyone else's input.
Thank you, Lang.
Oh my gosh, Gavin.
Gavin, 2 a.m. his time. I don't think he'll be there. Will you?
Depends on if he gets to sleep in.
Right.
No rest for the wicked.
Michelle, could I tack on a quick question here?
Please, please.
I know this is kind of for workplace, but if I have students in a program, say for high school, and they get a certification if they go through multiple high school units of credit, they need to like stagger, certification competencies or key performance indicators. Could this work for that as well, or is it a little bit more complex than needed?
No, here's the thing is that yes, Workplace, if you're using a lot of the features, does take a little more time to think through the processes, but if you have the need, you have the need. And it often takes more time and effort to find the right combination of plugins and workflows to make this sort of stuff work in Moodle than for us to just be able, like, all right, the functionality is already there, let's take advantage. And so even if you're looking at one piece of this and going, this is what we need, I think it's worth it. So yeah, don't get caught up on the Workplace thing at all, because it is definitely meeting the needs of a lot of people that are not in traditional corporate training environments.
And to summarize it, it's basically taking core materials that multiple people need to know, and at different levels or seasons or time frames, they would need to carry their results and their tests or their completions forward to complete, say, a training, for example, or get a certification. Is that right?
You could. So let me show you real quick from this site.
3 hours to wrap my mind around this, or
I do. Yeah, no, it's all right. So I have a sample user on this site that is assigned to a couple of different programs. So in this site, they're using badges and things like that. But so imagine you have a series of courses that your learners need to complete to achieve this certification, to go on to, I'm going to use your use case, go on to some competition, right? Like you can't go to this competition until you've completed these minimum requirements. You could create a program specific to that and say, here's the level 1 program. And to complete that level 1 program, you need to do, and in this case, they have categories of stuff. But so if you had categories of study they needed to work on, you could create categories of courses, and then you could set, you could set a certification to go with this. So let's say year 1, when they are in the level 1 content, you could say year 2, you kind of need to go back and review this so you're still going to fare well. And you can have the site automatically send out a message to them and say, hey, before you start the school year this year, you need to, bone up on this information, come back and complete this course. And it could be a scaled down version of the initial training. And then you could also, you could kind of use this as a leveling up thing, right? If you have freshmen coming in, here's the level 1 material. Once you've completed level 1, I don't care what year you are, go for it. You can take level 2. You award badges for that and or certificates. Students will talk, hey, check it out. I got the level 2 badge. I've completed this. Or I'm only a freshman, I'm on level 4. You can really define the path for them, show them how they've progressed, how they're doing. And make things easier on yourself.
Very interesting. It adds some continuity to fragmented Moodle courses, basically.
Exactly.
For returning trainees or students or whatever. Okay.
Yep, you got it.
So are you doing anything else specific to workshops or
to workplace?
Yeah.
I think we are scheduling like a workplace Q&A in our booth. I don't know that we have it on the schedule yet, but if you check our booth course, if you go into sponsors on the Mountain Moot site and look for us, check that schedule. I don't know if Jeff is still here.
Okay.
Sure, I know we were still figuring out the time, but you can always reach out to us too. We can do a discussion if we don't. Yep.
Awesome.
Michelle, the comment you made there about people making a choice for workplace, maybe for a specific function. Another example for that, I was working with Goodwill, Goodwill, the organization, and they're in one of the states. And what I did, this is a new thing for me, is because their services sometimes breach into healthcare, where they're providing at-home care services and things, they technically have to be accredited as a healthcare organization, which means the individuals have to maintain certifications related to hazardous materials and bloodborne pathogens and things like this, even though they might be somebody that's just, cleaning the house.
Oh, right.
And so they, as an organization, to maintain their accreditation every 3 years, have to show that all of their staff go through the required annual training and get recertified annually. And they need to be able to show the accreditation body, whoever comes in, at any time, a current status report of that all of your people are certified. And that's the only thing they did workplace for, was to say, here's a class that represents in-person stuff that the managers do with you. You check a box, get things done, you get the certification, and you move on and you do that every 3 years. That's the only thing they use it for.
If you get a chance, I encourage you to go to Sean Courtney's session. They're doing workplace, and your example reminds me of theirs. So, they have construction work sites all over Montana, and they have a similar need, right? Like you got to make sure that the guy who's doing electrical work is certified to do electrical work.
Right.
But people don't carry their certificates around, or, people don't have the reports at hand. So our developers worked with Sean, and basically a contractor on a work site will have a QR code. It could be on his hat, I think is what they talked about, like their hard hat, or on their badge. And then the supervisor just comes up, scans that QR code, pulls up the report in an instant, and says, here's what you've completed. So he nods his head and go, yep, you're cleared to work on that. I can see it, that you've completed
Wow.
this. Yeah, it's really cool. I think he's doing a session on it. I don't know what time it is, but
It's at 11 tomorrow.
oh, thanks. Oh, hey, Sean, I didn't know if you were still there.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, please come. We're gonna show all of that. It's gonna be a really detailed look at how that all works, which will be fun. I could go on and on about right now, but probably best just to see it first. So
Yeah. Thanks.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. It was good to see you guys.
You as well.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. See ya.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Hey, don't leave quite yet.
Okay, I'm not.
So the only reason I say that is I just sent to Ted a private message that's really to Ted, Jonathan, and you, Michelle.
Okay.
So the gist of it is I could see our workforce training and continuing education at ISU using
Totally.
work this about to call it workforces workplace, but again, we don't work with them, and I don't know. I mean, the money situation obviously is bad in higher ed right now.
Uh-huh.
But if you send an email to itrc@isu.edu with, I mean, I don't even know what the thing that you send, but something kind of to maybe get them to think about it, we could forward it on to them.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm just trying to think, because the other thing I was thinking about was I helped them with part of continuing education was getting this thing set up where people got a certificate at the end of finishing a course, or maybe it was even courses, but it involves a third-party system, and and I figured out like some tricks that they could use to get it all accomplished. So not that they want to break their agreement with this third-party people, but if they get their certificates, that might cut the cost. I mean, that might cut the cost down or whatever. And I forget I can't remember if they're self-hosted anymore or if they're using a third-party hosting system, but Randy actually probably knows a little more about what they're doing with their stuff because he's helped them more.
Okay.
Like I should say he's helped faculty using that system more.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
So and there are days I'm so busy I don't want to know more stuff. But just if you have like a pitch or something way to describe that how it would help those guys, we could probably pass it on to them, and then who knows how they really what they do with that stuff right now. They might feel they have no money. Of course, their budget might be kind of more independent too. I don't know. See, so much I don't know.
I've been working with a lot of organizations that are doing that kind of work, those kinds of services, who are actually in a good place right now because they're so busy, because so many people out of work.
Yeah, I know. So that's true because